So I started thinking about doing it in-house because that is how I had done it in the past, right? And so having two companies, both were on cash financials. I was going to have to do two cash to accrual transactions. I was going to have to hire people. There were no finance people in either organization. The second organization had kind of like a CPA bookkeeper, contractor type. And so thinking about that, I knew I would need to hire internally, probably 2 to 3 people, and I would have to do 2 ERP transitions. So for those on the call that very well have been through an ERP transitions, those are very long. So usually I try to go live, whatever the fiscal year is, oftentimes Jan 1, which means, in my opinion, you need to make a decision in July for that and start that transition. Most ERP places take 3 months. It's usually at least 3. It's probably more like 4 to 6. So in my mind, the time frame for accomplishing the ERP transitions was at least a year. And cash to accrual is something that, I've done before and other CFOs have done, but you really probably need a third party to do that for you because you'll spend all your time there. So for both of those, I think I would have had to go out and hire someone like a third party contractor to come in and help me with that transition. And so that's what I had been going on in my mind. And then I got introduced to Consero, and Consero said, yeah, we can have your finance function complete the ERP transition onto bill instead of, paper checks to send to vendors, onto Blackline, onto a T&E solution. I mean, just the entire function, not just the GL, in 2 months. And so I heard that. I assumed 4 months because nothing ever goes online on time. But knowing that I had to do the cash to accrual and change, modernize the finance stack, I couldn't beat that timeline. And so honestly, just that timeline is why I ended up going with Consero versus building it in-house. I mean, the nice thing about Consero is, so they bring in, you pay one fee to Consero, right? And it's the technology and the people. And so if I had to go out and hire 2 to 3 people and get the technology, it actually would have been more expensive than Consero. Consero was the cheaper alternative because they do use folks in India and have, better technology rates with their partners. For sure. Well, Consero made me look really good. So I started with that company end of March 2021. And the acquisition of our new company went through 2 weeks after. So we went live with Consero, including the cash to accrual transition, by June 1. So April, May, June 1, we were live on Intact, on Bill, on Nexonia. The first month, a few hiccups. So I would say it was really cooking July 1, but 3 months from starting, I had cash to accrual done and had the finance stack modernized. That first acquisition went live September 1. We did another acquisition in November that went live March 1. So when I sit back and think to like my first year in the finance seat there, Consero enabled me to do purchase accounting for 2 acquisitions. And even when you do, as a CFO, even if you've done acquisitions, purchase accounting isn't something you do every day, but Consero did it every day. And their Wolf team was amazing. I mean, shout out to Pana. He is a genius at Consero. So we did 2 of those. We modernized the financial stack for all 3 of those companies and did cash to accrual transition for 2 of them in a year, which I wouldn't have been able to do on my own. In a year, I probably would have had the first company completed and in process with the second one, but I think that Consero sped up my timeline by at least half. I think the tech stack is huge because, especially if you think about the tech stack for when you go to sale, it's really important too. But then also think about the tech stack from what you want to do as a CFO strategically, right? Like I don't want to spend all my time worrying about making sure the numbers are right, worrying about if this company is in QuickBooks and this company is intact. I don't want to spend my time worrying about if systems are talking to each other, if I get errors. And so I think the fact that Consero has a unified tech stack, I didn't have to do any evaluation, you know, of Intact versus NetSuite or Bill versus, you know, Mineral Tree or any of the others out there. It was a unified tech stack, and we got every acquisition onto that in a timely manner so that we could do some more strategic things. We could pull the reporting we needed to. Consero is really good about figuring out what reporting you need and putting the classes together so that you can view the financials in the way you want to. And so working with Consero, getting that all done quickly allowed me to be more strategic and be at a higher level and be working with the exec team on how do we integrate these operationally. You know, when we're going to sale, everything's in one place. We can pull the numbers. So I think the unified tech stack is huge. I think it's important both if you're making acquisitions and also when you go to sale. So I think when you're going out and you're looking at companies to acquire, obviously when you're making that decision based on if that company is a strategic fit. And when you bring that company in, you want to see the return on that acquisition. Now, if you bring that company in and you're not sure if you're going to use your financial systems or their financial systems or how to report, or it takes a year to be able to see anything, I think it slows down the operational integration sometimes, and it slows down the ability to see the company strategically as a combined business. You know, a lot of times I mean, acquisitions are hard. It's hard to integrate acquisitions. You have two different processes, you have two different operations. All of that is hard. But what you don't want is you don't want the finance and accounting, like literally the tallying of numbers, to be a barrier. So the thing I love about Consero is it makes sure that's not a barrier, because you can get an acquisition on your tech stack in 2 months. You know, like you can't do that anywhere else. And so it allows the CFO, it allows the CFO to look good, but it also allows the CFO to give the reporting, give the numbers that help the executive team make decisions. When I was at Pixel, we got everybody on one system on March, and in April we got an LOI. And so all of a sudden we were going into diligence. And so if we hadn't been on a unified system, that process would have been significantly more difficult. One of the things, buyers always ask for revenue by customer, right? They always ask for expense by vendor. They always ask for any changes you see that are coming up. If they see anything in the historical financials that looks weird, like some sort of big payout or something, they're going to ask all those questions. And so you want to be able to provide the detail. One of the things that's nice about Consero that I have never had at any company is you can actually look at your expenses, like not what bills you got, but you can look at your expenses by vendor, by employee. So they tracked that level of detail. So I could go into Simple, the platform, pull up my financials, and something looks weird. There's a big variance. I click on it and it shows me cost by vendor and by employee for that period. And I can see the increase, where it was, which vendor it was. And so a lot of that type of information is really powerful going into a sale, because at the end of the day, if you're going into the due diligence process, you just need to have all your ducks in a row. If finance or accounting screws up the diligence process, you're in trouble, right? You want all the numbers to be in order, in a good place, so that everything you're putting in the data room, you know the data, you know the backup, you can go and get it if you need it. So one of the nice things about Consero being your team is it's up to Consero to manage the time, right? When you have an in-house team, you know what your in-house team is. Your in-house team is always lean, because you also control the budget. So you don't want to spend more money on another accountant or an AP person. You want to be as lean as possible. And so when you go into a diligence process, that is a lot of work. It's a lot of requests. It's just like an audit, right? You go into an audit and there's so many requests, especially a first-year audit, and especially if you've made acquisitions, those are grueling. And when they're in-house, I think you feel the pain a lot more. Through the diligence process, the nice thing is if there's things on the list that are directly financial related, I could send those to Consero. Could say, hey, these are the requests, these are the diligence requests I have. Can you prepare those for me? They prepare them, they put them in our drive, I can pull them. Even if I wanted to give them direct access, they could put them in the data room for me, but it's great. So my experience with Consero was audits were fantastic. Audits were almost easy because I just gave them the PBC list, and then acquisitions were much easier because they were pulling all of that detail and then could look into questions as well. So it was a lot of support. And Consero they have a lot of people, so they can manage the timelines, they can manage the requests through multiple people. Even if your team is busy, they can pull other people. So very helpful. And the funniest thing is when we went into that acquisition process, they actually asked us, oh, are your financials SOC compliant? And I thought to myself, I've no idea, probably not. But I asked Consero and they said, oh yeah, we're SOC compliant. We'll upload the letter or whatever. And so that was a nice little bonus point for me. I think an outsourced finance team like Consero is incredibly helpful, especially if two things. If one, you are really trying to save costs versus building an in-house team versus needing to go out for a contractor for various initiatives, cash to accrual, purchase accounting, those type of things. Those are all things you usually need help on. And the other thing is time. If you are joining a company and you are thinking the company is going to make acquisitions, those are two scenarios where I would say outsourced finance is absolutely the way to go because you're not going to be able to do it as quickly yourself. So I think for me, Consero really helped with time to market and value. It would have cost me more. It would have cost me more to do it internally than the outsource function. I think there's also a way to be really successful with an outsourced finance team. And I think it's thinking of them as your own team, right? So we met with Consero weekly, and I really thought of them as an extension of my finance and accounting team, as an extension of my arm, as part of the company, as opposed to a vendor. They were part of my finance function. And I think that is key to a really successful relationship because you need to treat them like they're part of your team. You need to let them know what your initiatives are, what you're trying to do, and keep them informed because they have a lot of insights and can really help you get there. It's not just a vendor type of situation. It's definitely a partnership. So I would say if you are thinking about it, make sure you partner with that team and really, especially your VP of finance, they're really helpful. Consero was our controller. So we had a controller, his name was Manju, and he was wonderful. And so he overviewed the financials. The one thing I love about Consero is they have this simple platform. And so the simple, you can log in and you can approve your bills and you can look at your receivables. You can look at your financial statements and you can look at all of that in simple. And I was oftentimes in simple. And my controller over at Consero was oftentimes more in the numbers. So like I said, we met with him weekly and he walked through what was going on. Oftentimes it was, Ashley, we really need you to do this because you're behind and you're going to make claims late or something like that. He really pushed me. But Manju was the one that was intact all the time, looking at the financials and driving the business forward. We did not have
an outside controller. I did, through acquisitions, pick up a couple FP&A people.